I'm going to just jump in and read some of the essay to give you a taste of her artwork. She's an artist that I seem to have run in a parallel line to or with throughout my life. The decades of living in Columbia, going to Baltimore and Washington to see art, listen to music, things like that, immersed in those worlds. I only came across her art in January when I asked a friend, who should I write about for this issue? And instantly I realized that I've missed a wonderful artist all my years. So let's hear about her. Outlandish Presence, the artwork of Baltimore's Laurie Jagel. We should have been there, all of us, probably each and every time, every place, every work, every performative presence. Just where is there? Well, at this point in the decades-long career of Baltimore-based interdisciplinary artist Laurie Jagel, it's kind of all over the place, as far afield as Europe, Japan, and Russia, closer to home in New York City, Pittsburgh, Washington, D.C., and just recently in Northern Virginia. Baltimore's home base, heart, art, and soul, Jagel considers the city itself her canvas as well as her gallery. Performative and participatory, often monumental, eager to engage, always intriguing. I have no idea what's behind me at the moment, but I'll be reading about some of the pieces here. Her art is carnivalesque a lot of times. It appears and then it's gone, and you've missed it if you didn't interact with it. And it becomes myth. Performative, participatory, often monumental, eager to engage, always intriguing. Locally, her work tends to take up temporary residence in such places as storefronts, empty lots, median strips, street corners, alleyways, and of course, the more typical gallery exhibits and installations. It tends to be ephemeral, there and gone. What's left quickly becomes myth, recognized by a kind of awe and amazement and respect. Born in Jersey City, New Jersey, and after achieving a BFA from the Tyler School of Art in Philadelphia, Jagel came to Baltimore in 1979 to study at the Maryland Institute College of Art's Reinhardt School of Sculpture. After graduating from the MFA program, she stayed, choosing to use the city itself as both canvas and gallery. Her work fits right into the quirky sideshow aspects of Baltimore's character, adding, amplifying, and exploring a platform that is particular, brave, and important. Who does not love Baltimore? People have wondered if she would be the artist she is if she were in any other city. Get to know her work, and it's not so much a wonder. The canvas, the city, and the artist are, in a lot of respects, one. In the many places you'll find her work collected online, you'll find a crafted bio that starts, Laurie Jagel is an interdisciplinary artist, olfactory spelunker, and cobbler of situations. She's a character. Her media includes sculpture, performance, and events that draw the viewer in as a participant. Sculpturally monumental and set in public places, her work is often unforgettable. The glowing and massive The Root, Blue-Eyed, 2004, located on the lawn of Johns Hopkins University's Evergreen House, is a 15 by 10 by 10-foot devil-like head with sharply pointed ears and nose and equally ominous beard. It rests cheekily on the ground. Its eyes glow with videos of actual eyes. Jagel created Bozo Prison for 4 or more, which you saw on the screen a few moments ago. It may still be there. It is still there. In 1999 for Artscape, it was constructed of stacked levels or cells of wood, paper, and other materials topped with a clown head that lights up at night. Described as architectural folly, theater in the shape of a clown, and a vessel for venting and airing one's angst, it was set in a median strip for all who passed by to confront while performers shouted and screamed insults at them. While both pieces would demand attention in person, they also command recognition from the pages of magazines and newspapers. For those of us that weren't there, that's what we have to engage in those works now. And you see that it really is attention-getting. The carnival has come to town. Started in 1999 in the basement of Maryland Art Place, the project titled 14 Karat Cabaret, rare and sweet and rotten to the core by one tagline, was and is in a perennial kind of apparition, returning year after year in one place or another, a place to experiment with new forms of art making and challenging expectations. With Jagel as the director and organizer, 14 Karat Cabaret presented hundreds of local, national, and international artists, offering a fertile ground to explore through performance, music, dance, film, and video. Jagel is la hostess, the MC, while presenting many multidisciplinary performances herself, It is a carnival-like traveling thing that reappears from elsewhere, yet at the same time, it is always Baltimore, rare, extravagant, and challenging, referencing a collection of moments from performances artist and attendee Peter Walsh shares. Black light in a dark room. A clock of giant hands point to the time. It's 14 o'clock. Tarot card readings in a bank vault. A cigarette girl selling candy cigarettes. Naked tap dancers with bags on their heads. The stale stink of tobacco smoke. A special orchestra performance held during a snowstorm during which the conductor's magic wand is passed from person to person. That's an example of 14-karat cabaret. For a performer, there's room to work ideas into being, to see what can be taken on, and where things can go. Always, it seems, the provocateurs push further. Did the police show up? Yes, at least once. For audience members, there is again both observation and participation, as they are presented with what might be considered an assault on the imagination. Somewhere in the night, well after 14 o'clock, the show is over, the lights go out until the next performance. What was witnessed disappears into the dark, the vapor of memory. I'm going to skip ahead because I want to read a part which sort of explains the image on the cover. This is a parallel piece. A lot of times, Drugrel develops something along one line and then recreates the piece using different things. In this case, what you saw on the cover, the example comes from knitting. Speaking of fashion, particularly intriguing participatory works of Drugrel's are the knitting jams that have occurred in various locations and times since the mid-2000s. Because Drugrel is a performer, costuming and textile work has been a part of her repertoire from the beginning. Knitting jams are performative works that turn knitting in orchestral. Picture this, a gathering of people sitting in chairs, all with knitting needles, all knitting in unison, yarn drawn from a central open suitcase object. The knitter's needles are equipped with many microphones which amplify the percussive nature of the knitting process, capturing the rhythmic counterpoint of the knitter's hand movements. The installation becomes a manifestation of the participants' collective process and symphonic noisy expression of the craft. The sound changes based on the knitter's stitch, the needles, the yarn, the chosen pattern. Later versions of this project include adapting the sound to a visualization projected onto screens. You can watch these videos if you use that Google thing and track down Laurie Drugrel and the knitting jams. What you see on the cover is basically a hand turned into a fountain pen with microphones so that the act of writing becomes auditory. We'll finish with a portion. When I was writing this essay, I realized very quickly that most of the work was gone, and I was horrified. You never write about an artist without getting to experience their work. There was a piece at George Mason University in Northern Virginia, so I went down one day to have a look at it. And I'm kind of glad I did because you got to see that personal interaction. You got to have that personal interaction with a piece. At the time I was writing this essay, a piece of Drugrel's work was part of a recent cast-recast exhibit at the Gillespie Gallery on the campus of George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia. The gallery sits near the entrance of the Art and Design building on a hallway that was abuzz with a to and fro between class students when I visited. Once you step into the gallery, however, the atmosphere changes. The sense of hustle shifts to quiet and contemplation. The exhibit is a collection of work that looks to address our collective futures through the work of selected women artists. It corresponds to a new public sculpture located at Reston Town Square Park called Buoyant Force, a work by one of the exhibit's curators, Sue Rubicon, an art professor at George Mason. The sculpture, a towering 50-foot metal construction that takes after the surrealist paintings of Case Age, is interactive in that it includes a QR code that observers can use to both activate its story and listen to something like tarot-like readings offering predictions of the future. The readings were created by the 22 women or oracles whose work makes up the cast-recast show, regathered to present their own visual art looking toward the future with buoyant force. To create digital images and texts that speak to our collective futures, Mason Exhibitions Arlington now has brought these artists together in the Cast-Recast show. Drugrel's piece in the show is to the right of the gallery's entrance. Take a moment to soak in the panorama of the room as you head towards it, a variety of styles and articulations, all bright and instantly intriguing. Just beyond, a small space that acts as a reading room for the exhibit is a small space that's partitioned off by floor-to-ceiling draping. Black curtains that almost eat the light. Within the curtained space is grotto, divining the naiad. 2023. A work made from rock, paper, a crystal pendulum, projected video, sound, sand, and drape. You're encouraged to enter and consult the oracle. A label for the work explains, the naiads were water nymphs of springs and wells in ancient mythology. Considered astral creators of the earth's water, they were oracles that weighed the balance of morality and immorality. If these bodies of water were not cherished and cared for, or were made unhappy, they would cause pestilence, drought, and flooding. They would wreak havoc on the environment. Stepping inside the grotto, so to speak, you become enveloped in darkness. There's a dark blue light projected down in a circle in the center of the space. Around the circle of light on the floor are rocks, coral-like in shape. A little further out from the center circle of rocks is another encompassing circle of rocks, outlining a pathway around that circle. You realize the light in the center of the space is really portraying a portrayal of something, like moving water. There's a sound of infrequent dripping. The environment is set. This is one of those places of the naiads. Above what you are now seeing as a pool of water, a crystal hangs on a string, swaying ever so slightly. It could be driven by air or spirit. It casts a shadow on the water, which moves across the oracular element of the piece, something like a Ouija board centered within that water space. Rather than an elaborate alphabet to spell out things, it's the same word repeated 4 times, each set in the directions north, south, east, and west. Maybe, 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 maybe. And that's our prediction of the future.